Welcome to UC Today with me, David Dungay. Today we have a great conversation. We're going to be talking about digital optimization and how that is impacting the customer experience landscape. I'm joined by Thomas from Toku. Welcome to the show, Thomas. How are you?
Thank you, David. I'm doing great.
Fantastic. Well, before we get into the conversation, Thomas, do you want to give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and the business?
Sure. So I'm Thomas Laboulle. I'm the CEO and founder of Toku. Toku is a leading cloud communications and customer engagement platform specialized for enterprises here in Asia Pacific. We are focusing on everything from connectivity to APIs and SDKs for the programmatic offering that we have to the end-to-end solutions that are used by business teams at our clients' spaces.
Great. So, Tomas, we've found ourselves in an interesting situation in the market. I really want to get into, where we are today. We've had 3 years, roughly 3 years since the beginning of the pandemic. We've seen a lot of investment. We've seen a lot of overinvestment, overlapping services. But where do you see, the current state of the enterprise market and that need for digital optimization?
Yes, so as you said, there was a lot of movement over the last 3 years. There was also for a number of companies quite a backlog that they needed to caught up with. And digital transformation has been on the agenda of most companies for now several decades, actually. And as you rightfully said, now digital transformation is still a topic for many companies, but others that have already gone through that transformation from moving from on-premise to the cloud are now also looking at the next step, which is then how are we optimizing all these different technologies and different interactions that we have with our customers, all the processes and the operations behind. So that is now an additional phase, and depending on the industry, depending on how much you've invested in the past as a company, you might still be doing your digital transformation or having an overlap with the digital optimization for some of your departments too.
Yeah, I mean, how do you see that investment landscape, Thomas? I mean, a lot of people spent a lot of money over the last couple of years in a very short time frame. How significant is that investment? We're heading into this sort of bit more of a downturn in the global macro environment. How do you view that?
Well, the digital optimization is really all about looking now with more time being spent on these projects on what are the actual results. How have these investment panned out? What is the return that we are seeing from it? So there is already much more data than 3 years ago for some of these technologies. And you also want to start looking at how can we further improve it or maybe change some of the implementations that we've done. It's also a lot about being more data driven and therefore making sure that everything that was decided sometimes in a rush, because during COVID, some companies had to really catch up and be very fast. And some implementations were, as we say, quick and dirty. And now you are looking back and deciding with a little bit more time and a little bit more consideration and definitely much more data on, okay, what were the good choices and the choices that maybe we want to even reinforce, and some where we might want to pivot, backtrack, or completely sunset.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the approach then to this, review period a lot of businesses find themselves in. Why is it necessary to have a complete end-to-end approach for these enterprises to get this optimization right?
Well, the end-to-end approach really makes sense for large organizations and multinationals, enterprises. It's really the enterprise segment that we would be targeting, and we would be recommending to have that end-to-end approach because there is so much operational complexity. The fact that you have multiple markets that you need to cover as well. You're talking about different regulations, different maybe also legacy systems that have been interconnected. So having an end-to-end approach ensures that you are really working with the same vendor, with the same project team from designing the specs and actually first collecting all the business requirements and really having that initial design phase up to the very end of actually deploying the solution that has been then mapped out together with the same vendor, and then the ongoing maintenance. Because doing that, you will be able to streamline your processes much better. You will have greater efficiency, but even more important, you will have a very high level of accountability, because it's the same provider that has accompanied you as a customer for the entire journey from the initial design phase up to the go live.
Yeah, I mean, are you seeing many companies get this wrong? We've got more data to call on than ever before. As a user case study, we couldn't have asked for 3 years of richer data, really. What are you seeing in terms of companies who are not quite getting this right?
Well, look, it's true that 3 years seems like a lot, but don't forget that the pace at which everything was evolving was also very high. And so it's normal that some mistakes were made. Also, the track record for some technologies, the way that some trends have been anticipated and then how they are turning out. We were talking about no one will ever go back to the office. From now being in a hybrid work environment. So even that has been completely misanticipated to some extent. So it's normal that companies need time to adapt. And again, it's all about making sure that you are making the choices with enough consideration and are not rushing into that. During COVID, sometimes the urgency was simply unavoidable. But now we have time to actually really look at the data, learn from the best practices that have been developed over the past few years. And again, being sure that you are working not only focused on the technology piece, but that you are also looking at having a holistic approach and looking at the processes and the feedback that you are getting not only from your customers, that's very important, but it's also about the feedback that you are getting from your employees. Again, there are so many things that need to be interconnected to actually deliver that perfect customer engagement that you want, that excellence. There are too many aspects to consider, and just technology is not going to bring you there.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of those investments. Our audience are telling us, although 2023 might be a bit of a year of rationalization of some of that technology, there will still be continued investments in this space. How do you feel enterprises should approach this task of tying that existing technology they've purchased previously to these new investments that we're going to see come through, and how are they going to tie that together to get this sort of seamless customer experience?
Sure, and you said it right. The rationalization, by the way, the reduction of costs is not something that must be seen as also an impact on how fast you are going to innovate and how fast you are going to improve the customer journey. You can make both coincide, and you can reconcile efficiency, cost reduction, and improved customer satisfaction. That is not an impossible task. You need to be, of course, quite progressive about it and make sure that you are collecting the right data and measuring every change that you are making to your customer journey to see what is the actual impact and is it worth continuing on that path, or should we adapt a little bit. It's a little bit the same thing as automation, right? Automation is a great way to improve your costs, your total expenses, but not everything that can be automated should be automated. You need to also see what is the impact that it has on my customer journey and therefore on the satisfaction of our audience. So overall, what I think is happening in the market today is really taking a step back to better accelerate behind and really collecting all the data. I think there is also a lot of demand for best practices. That's why we also see such a great need for the consulting arm that we now have here in Asia, and the ability to accompany our customers from the design phase, listening to their pain points, listening to the business requirements that they have, and then collectively come to a solution that is going to bring together the technology piece, the better processes that they would need, and then also having that feedback loop that is so important for enterprises to deliver on their promise of an excellent customer engagement.
Tomas, you mentioned your consultancy part of the business there. Let's maybe talk about Toku for a minute, and maybe you could talk to some of the other support you offer your customers out there for this sort of period of optimization we all find ourselves in.
Yes, with pleasure. So, indeed, what we believe that there needs to be that holistic approach that I was talking about a bit earlier, really, because there are, for large enterprises, too many things to consider. That you would just say, look, here is our software, you can access it online, put your credit card and start using it. And that's impossible for large organizations because they will have processes that are already quite intricated with other systems. Some of these systems being third-party systems or proprietary systems that they've developed in-house, simply because, as you know, for very large organizations, sometimes they're simply not what they really need available, and they want to develop it in-house. So having that approach of making sure that you will be able to give advice not only on the best practices related to your contact center, to your business telephony, but can also start looking at, okay, what are the impacts on the changing regulatory environment? You are working with customers that are present in multiple markets, and Asia Pacific is an extremely fragmented region where the regulations are not entirely the same. There are very big differences from making sure that you are storing everything in the market, in the country, from having only the media that needs to remain in the market, on having also the right licenses, and not only from a technology provider perspective, but also on the client side. And clients are expecting that the technology provider, and in this case Toku, is able to help them navigate the regulatory environment as well. Not only on the best practices of technology, but also on just how are they going to market. They are talking about business cases for marketing, sales, customer service. There are too many aspects to consider. And that's, I think, really our strength in Asia Pacific. The team is present here. Everything gets developed in Singapore and our regional hubs. And therefore, the customers that are also present in these markets feel very reassured that they're working with a provider that is also in the region and focused with them on the same markets.
Yeah, I mean, I see this time and time again with businesses that operate across multiple regions. It is a very, very complex. So it's very important to get a trusted partner on board with you to help you through that. Tomas, before I let you go, I really want to sort of summarize some of this conversation. We've got to have a lot of businesses viewing this today thinking, I've made all these investments over the last 3 years. How do I bring all my learnings, all of that data I've collected on how my employees are using this and to how my customer experience has changed, and how do I tie that in with the investments I need to make this year? And there's going to be a lot of people wondering, well, where do I start that journey? What are your top tips to those business owners or the CIOs watching today thinking about this question? Where should I start?
Sure. I think that first of all is about having a real audit, right? About everything that is in place, looking at the data, discovering the pain points, and with the pain points also making the prioritization of these pain points. What is really going to impact your customer satisfaction? What is maybe also hurting your revenue generation, or simply costing way too much for what the purpose is of that expense? So the audit is really the first place that I would start, and you can do that in-house or with different consulting firms that are specialized in that aspect. And also regarding technology, it's true that there are constantly new things coming up on the market. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should rush into that. It's a little bit the same as when we talk about the omni-channel customer engagement approach. Not every company, not every industry requires to have all the channels that are available. Sometimes it's better to have only a few channels that work very, very well, that are extremely integrated with all your customer data repositories, and that are providing that customer satisfaction, rather than having 10 channels and social media on top of it and so on, and actually providing a poor overall customer experience. So it's really something that needs to be carefully evaluated, I would say, and there is no need to rush into changes, especially on the technology aspects. For large organizations, changing technology should be something that they really look at very carefully, because it takes months to do it properly, and you don't want to have to change it the next year. So
Fantastic.
really the audit, the reflection, those are the two main aspects, I would say, and then preferably working also with a provider that can give you the reassurance about their track record, their expertise, and their ability to accompany you not only from the design phase, but also later on in the implementation phase.
Tomas, thank you so much for joining me. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for, but that was full of insight, and I think a lot of businesses are going to take some golden nuggets of information away from this conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
And thank you for watching. You've been watching me, David Dungay, on UC Today. If you like today's conversation, please give us a like and a share on social media. That's it from me. See you next time.